Hello, class. This is me and Lily's Asian Culture Project. We have decided to do gunpowder in Asia. Let's get started.
Okay, starting with a brief overview of the chemistry and composition of gunpowder. At the time of creation, gunpowder consisted of saltpeter, also known as potassium nitrate, charcoal, and sulfur. The original recipe, although lost, was around 75% potassium nitrate, 15% charcoal, and 10% sulfur. However, this recipe has varied between countries and time. Nowadays, the only ingredient that remains consistent is the use of potassium nitrate. This is due to the large reservoirs and sources we have available today.
After Lily's brief talk about the chemistry and composition of gunpowder, we can move on to the importance of saltpeter within it. Saltpeter was used for centuries across all civilizations and has held many purposes throughout history. It has held a purpose in medicine, being a food preservative, being a fertilizer, and in recent times had a purpose in weaponry and recreation. In medicine, it was used back then by Thailand to treat kidney-associated infections such as urinary tract infections. It had treated asthma and served as a role in being a antibacterial agent. It is obsolete overall for medicine now and is only used to be a diuretic today. In food preservation, it had historical use for curing meat, brining, and dry curing. It also served a role in being an antioxidant, which prevented the rancid smell you would get from food. In fertilizer, it was a common component in compounds as it provided potassium and nitrogen to the plants.
So, after John's talk about saltpeter, we're going to move on to the invention of gunpowder. During the Tang Dynasty in the 9th century, Chinese alchemists accidentally burned down their lab in search for a potion of immortality. Instead, they discovered what they called black powder, what we know as gunpowder today. Something so deadly was created in this lab that it's been used throughout centuries to this day. What was meant to be a potion of life turned into a weapon of mass destruction.
Talk about the invention of gunpowder, we can now talk about weaponizing gunpowder in China. Innovation used under the Song Dynasty were explosive and incendiary arrows, incendiary devices such as the ceramic bombs, and early prototype of a flamethrower. By introducing these weapons in war, China was changing the war dynamics and strategies. At first, China used gunpowder to enhance their current weapons, such as the bow and arrow, and over time they created weapons that revolved around it, such as the fire lance. The fire lance originally consisted of a bamboo tube that, when ignited, would shoot arrow bits or metal out of it. To weaponizing gunpowder in the Mongolian Empire. Gunpowder technology was used in siege only, and at first, the Mongolians did not have any sort of technology like this ever, so they brought Chinese engineers into it. It utilized smokescreen gadgets, explosive and toxic gas grenades, which was filled with shrapnel, arsenic, and lime. They had early iterations of a cannon, and the earliest recorded and confirmed cannon was in 1298. They also had rockets, which was used for large-scale smokescreen. This was used little in their Western campaign, and some fun facts are that toxic gas grenades blinded, confused, and disoriented oppositional soldiers. The cannons were mainly used against horses and soldiers and had little effect on stone walls. Using gunpowder, we now are on recreational use of gunpowder. In China, they used it for fireworks and firecrackers. The Mongols used it for fireworks as well, but also rockets. The Chinese and Mongols have used this for traditional firecrackers for entertainment. Chinese engineers and scientists have combined gunpowder with different earth elements to emit different colors of explosive sparks. Most supply the Mongols have stolen from the Chinese were used for regular firework entertainment, as leeches from the West described. Fireworks are used during festivals and holidays all over the world. For example, Chinese New Year.
Moving on from John's talk about the recreational uses of gunpowder, we'll talk about how gunpowder began to spread out of China. This was due to the Silk Road. However, the Chinese tried their hardest to keep gunpowder a secret. During the Song Dynasty, the government even banned the sale of saltpeter to other countries. If you look at the map on the presentation, you can see the major trade routes in red and the minor trade routes in gray. At first, gunpowder had only spread to India through the minor trade routes. However, India being a major trade hub, it eventually began to move westward to the Middle East and Europe. The time it took to move from China to Europe was about 300 years. And when it made its way to Europe, this is when it began to be rapidly industrialized and weapons became more automatic as well.